Let's make over this jewelry box. Here's a little square jewelry box. I would say it's about 11 by 14, 11 inches wide by 14 inches long. It has one opening with the mirror, and it has two sliding compartments, one on top and the other on the bottom. It's in really nice condition. These are the only jewelry boxes that I'll do, is if it's in really good condition. I don't want to be cleaning this velvet. I'll only take a jewelry box if it's perfect, really, because, you know, I'm going to sell it to somebody else, and, you know, I want them to have a nice, perfect piece. So there's that. Any of the little imperfections that are on there, there's a few scratches on the wood, and I'm going to fix those up, of course. They're not deep, they're superficial, really. I already washed it really good with a TSP product, and this feels a little deep. I'll probably put a little bit of wood putty on that and sand it down so that it's nice and smooth. It does come with the lock, so let's see if it works. I don't even know if that's in there. Did it go in? I'm kind of holding this in front. Not sure if it works. Oh, there it is. It does work. So that's pretty cool. Yep. Oop, now I have to unlock it. But I'm going to put some molds on. I'm going to put some decoupage, maybe some transfers, and I am going to use various paints in a blend. So let's get started. These are two molds by Redesign with Prima. One is the, I forget what it's called. But there's a couple of flowers on that I'm going to use, and the other is the bellflower. And here I'm just adding a little bit of cornstarch. I save my old bottles because that's perfect for cornstarch. You just shake it into your mold, and that works really well. It helps prevent the molding material from sticking. And I have other videos that show me making some molds, so I'm not going to spend too much time here. I'm going to kind of go from the beginning to the end. And if you're interested in watching more about that, you can look up some other videos where I'm using the molds. And I'm going to give it a light scuff sanding after I filled in those deep scratches with some wood putty. And yeah, a little bit of shellac to cover that so it doesn't bleed through. So here I'm going to do a blend with two different paints from Melange. This is the Stamperia red, and the other darker color is, it's a mauve color. I will list them underneath, and I'll hold them up to the camera later on in another section of the video where I show you the names. But these blend together really, really well. This is my first coat of paint, or it could be my second, actually, when I look at the sides. I did a few coats, probably three or four, and did the blending. It's an uneven design, and here I'm blending the edges of the two colors with a boar's bristle brush. It's just a round brush. Sometimes they're called wax brushes, but you can use them on paints as well. It's nice and soft, and I like it to blend my paints. And I'm using a regular synthetic brush to do the applications of the colors. But I love the way the Melange paints blend. I wish I had more of these paints, but I'm definitely going to invest in more in the future. Notice I'm not using any water here. Sometimes I'll add a little bit of a mist on my brush. And again, I don't show all the blending because I have other videos that show me blending. And these videos get awfully long. So hopefully, if you watch all the way through, you'll see a lot of different kinds of decorating at the end. Okay, so this is a basic part of my plan. These small flowers will actually go in the front, but of course I'm going to have to tilt it on its back in order to glue that on. This is actually a coat of paint, in case you're jumping in here, and it's a type of small blend with two Melange paints, Stamperia red and Mariposa mauve, and I love this. This is beautiful. And then a small decoupage paper. I forgot what that was. It's Stamperia, and I believe, and I'll have it listed below for sure in the tutorial. I believe it's the A3 size. And so that's kind of basically what I'm going to do. I had to piece some of these together, of course, because they're so, you know, they're so fragile that it actually broke apart. So, but that's okay. I'll just deal with that. Maybe use a little bit of a little bit of filler here afterwards to make it smooth. And you know, I'll go in and trim some little flakes that happened on the sides so it looks smoother. And this, of course, that's not really a plant, but I just threw that together with these little flowers that I made yesterday. So it doesn't really have to make any sense, of course. It's just what you want. So we're going to do that today. Yeah, I'm using the matte decoupage gel from Redesign with Prima, and that little tool is very cool. It's like a little tiny wallpaper, not brush, but a wallpaper tool. And it has a very soft edge. I've done everything from use my hands to, using the brayer to, using a piece of plastic, plastic wrap. But that tool, it has two sides. One side is the rubber, and the other side is like a felt covering, and it works beautifully. Notice here that the rice paper has a natural wrinkle to it, and I love this because when I put it on, this is what gave me the inspiration, was this paper. To me, it looks very Gothic, and so that's where I got the idea for the decorations for this jewelry box. And I'm going to use that same gel over the top to seal it at the end. The front, and when I do that, before I do it, I'm going to actually make a crisscross cut here because that will allow me to trim around the edges of my keyhole. So a little bit more on that side. Yeah, I think that's good. And then I can cut around it when it's dry. And I'm going to try to be careful not to get decoupage medium right here. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to cut in between before I finish putting the decoupage medium around here. So it's going to be adhered to everything else, and then this part last. So let's see. Let me pull this over here. So I'm going to let this drop open a little bit and make sure that there's no decoupage gel on the inside. I'm just pressing it down. I can notice I'm being very, very gentle because I don't want this to pull and tear. Now, if it does, I can still piece it down if I did get a tear, but I'm trying not to. Raise this up a bit. A little bit of gel there. I'm just going to wipe off with my knife. I can see that there's more gel here. Okay, just going to wipe off my knife. And before I rip this open, I'm going to make sure that I don't have any tiny spots adhering that will tend to tear. Yeah. Now, some of this doesn't have the gel medium on it because I want to wait for this to do that separately so that I'm not tearing around the lock. So I'm just going to let that prop open. I'm going to add a little bit of medium here and around here and right around my edge. So just a little bit of patience. I'm not going to go down on the foot. Yep, and after it's dry, then I'll go over the edge with some sandpaper, and that will cut a nice smooth edge above my feet. I'll do the same thing on the top at the seam with the cover and the base, and then I'll add a little bit more decoupage medium here. I'm going to do it with a very tiny brush instead of this big one, so that I can get in there with some more details. But let's leave it set for now so that it adheres and I don't want to tear, and then we'll come back and we'll finish going around the keyhole. Okay, so it's pretty dry, and now I'm going to work on this lock. So I have a really tiny flat end artist brush, and I have my decoupage medium right here. I have a nice wet, fresh wipe, and I'm going to start by, I've made sure I tore it back enough that I can get around it. So I'm going to start placing it down. It's pretty good around the edge, so I think I'm gonna tear right there first of all. So let me start on the bottom, and I'm just gently trying to follow the edge of the lock. I'm just going to make sure I can see how I'm expecting the edge to be by feeling it with my other thumb. This has a double push on that, so if you separate it, it kind of locks it in place. I just had a little glue on that side. Now, I am going to just try to go along the edge, but I'm going to do that after I do the top, because the top of the paper gets the decoupage gel as well. So I don't worry too much about going underneath. It's going to actually go underneath when I put my top part of the gel on. So I'm going to close my knife so I don't stab myself. And I have just a little bit of the decoupage gel. And this is going to kind of spread around when I push down on it. So I'm not really concerned about getting a level, even coat. I mean, I am, but it's going to adhere once I start pushing it down. Now here I can feel a little empty spot, so I'm literally going underneath with the edge of my brush, and I'm just going to make sure, excuse me, there are none on that side. And that looks really good. So just have a lot of patience here. I'm going to let that dry before I do anything else. Actually, I'm going to start, before I do anything else in that spot, but what I'm going to do is, if you can see the edge here, I'm going to start to trim this, just to get this big flap of paper off. So underneath, the feet of the jewelry box are actually set back just a little bit. So I'm going to use that rim to get a little close to the edge. And when I'm cutting, I don't start right on the edge because, I don't know, to me it has a tendency to rip. So I start just a little bit before the end of the paper on this side, and I'm going to push forward. That's all. And just let the razor do the work. Okay, so to kind of hide this edge on the right side, I'm going to just do a little bit of wood putty there, and then afterwards I'll just do a little tiny sand down on it. This up a little bit, and I have a tiny, I don't know what you call it, but it's a kind of a spatula. Oops. Yep. Again, we're going to wait for that to dry. Okay, so these molds curled up just like I thought they would, and I was literally going to throw them away because they were so deformed, and I didn't think it would work, and that's why I didn't turn the camera on. But off camera, I just literally like laid them down where I thought I wanted them, and then smashed them with my hand and broke them apart. So if you can see, there's spaces in here where they're broken. And then I try to glue and glued them down. Same thing on this side. Some little fractures right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill them with some wood putty, and then because the color is just the basic color, so although they look like candies, they're going to have a metallic sheen placed over them, so these colors will be subdued underneath. So let's do some wood putty filling. So yeah, we went and did some of the wood putty on parts of the stems and flowers that didn't quite come together after we broke them apart. Okay, so I'm going to do
a little bit of stenciling on here. This is just laying flat on my surface, and I'm going to use some gold gilding wax. It's Pebeo. It's my favorite gold. I'm trying to find the label. It's King Gold, and you can see the, I'm trying to get it in the light. Yeah, Pebeo. And they have all kinds of different colors, and what I did is I just put a little bit in the cap, and I'm going to do some stenciling on the back and on the sides, and then I'm going to add my stripes over the stenciling, because the stripes I'm hoping will be a little bit very sheer striping over it. And what did I do with my brush? I've got, a stencil brush, so it has a very flat bottom on it. I mean, you could technically make one of these if you could cut something off that had very tight, the actual amount of bristles is very, very dense, so it makes it so that it's kind of stiff. It's not as soft as your regular brushes. Or you could even use a sponge. A sponge is a good thing to use too. I think sponges work better with paints. But so I'm just going to make sure this is more or less in the middle. And I'm just going to start, putting a little bit of wax on the end of my stencil brush, and I'm going to stipple it on, which means I'm going to kind of bounce it up and down. So I'm just holding this down with my fingers. And I'm finding that it's very, very sheer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stipple, but I'm going to pull some of it too. So I don't know if you can see what my hand is doing, but it's bouncing down and it's pulling at the same time, just so that I can fill all these little details. And if you have to pull a little bit with your brush, it's good to really hold it down in the area where you're about to pull, and you'll be less apt to have bleed through if you do that. So, and I don't mind if it's sheer in some places, and hopefully, it will look a bit aged, and that's good. That's kind of what I'm looking for, because as I said, I'm going to add some striping over it as well. So it's all going to make a picture at the end. Sometimes I have a plan, but I don't always have a plan for my final decoration. I just kind of design along the way and see where I end up. I kind of have a basic idea, but I'm apt to change my mind. I try not to be stubborn about my preconceived notions about what's going to look good. If I don't think it's looking right, I'm just going to place this down by my side. If I don't think it looks right, I will stop what I'm doing. I won't force it. Whether that's paint colors or designs. Okay, so let's see what we have. Good. And it's very sheer. And I'm going to hold that up a little bit so that you can see it. Make sure I don't have any wax on my hands. This is the back. So, yep, just very sheer. Will I add another design? I'm not sure. I'm just not sure. Maybe I'll add this little flower. And my gilding wax is down by my side here on the table. And when I'm lifting my hand, I'm actually pushing with the brush. Because have you ever lifted your hand and then moved the entire stencil piece? Yeah, so I don't really want to do that. Oh, that looks so pretty. Will I do that on the other side? Yeah, I think I will. Yep. Just going to go right over it. Yep. I'm getting some more gilding wax on the end of my brush. And yeah, you're going to get this stuff on your fingers. It's okay though, it washes off. It smells delicious. I don't know if you're into smells or not, but this gilding wax smells so good. It's not a chemical type of smell. It's just, I don't know, it smells floral. Really nice. Okay. Yep, a little faded. Maybe I can put that back down. Let's put that over again. And let me get some more gilding wax in these flower spots. And see if I can bring it out to the same level as the other side so it looks even. Yeah, that's better. Very nice. Let me wipe my hands. And then I'll bring that up for the camera. It's upside down, so your flowers are going to look upside down. I don't want to flip this around because I'm apt to drop something, and you know, I don't want to mess up my artwork. But that's really pretty, and afterwards, you know, when I put the glaze and stripes over, that's going to look so pretty. So let's see if we can also design the sides as well. Now, we don't have to use the same pattern. And I like to switch up my patterns. I've had people say, you know, if you start in the middle, you'll get an even look side to side. And like, yeah, you know, sometimes I do want that, but sometimes I don't. Sometimes I'm deliberately. I mean, do you do that? Do you mix your design? So, for instance, if you look at this. The design itself, it's a Martha Stewart stencil. It's very pretty. It has some delicate laciness to it, kind of a floral look here. But there's a flower on this end, and then it goes across. The patterns are a little different, and it ends up with the stem on the other side. So technically, you might want to start on one end. It depends on the look that you want. I mean, it's artistic license. Not everything is level from side to side. In fact, it just adds a little variation sometimes, a nice variation if it's not level. But that's just my opinion, you know. Put some comments in and let me know what you think about that. I mean, how do you feel about doing your patterns? Sometimes patterns work better if they're equal side to side. In fact, what I'm thinking of is the Art Nouveau, which you know, is a very old design process. And in Art Nouveau, you're very, very likely to see even columns, even designs from one side to the other, a lot of bookend designs, or you might want to call it stereo. So one side is the same as the other in opposite way, and it's called stereo. Well, I'm kind of hearkening back to chemistry, but it's the same idea. And I'm going to add some stripes. And I'm going to use the acrylic blush chrome Redesign with Prima, but I want it to be a bit less opaque. So it has a very, very opaque quality to it. So I want to do stripes. I'm going to do them so that they fade away, top and bottom. And in order to make that easier for myself and not have to sand it afterwards to get the effect that I want, I'm going to thin it a little bit with some glaze. So I found the pearlescent glaze, so I'm very happy about that. And I'm going to do a little mixing to thin it out to the texture that I want. So these are just little caps to milk containers and, drink containers. And rather than buy more products, I just use, what I have naturally in day-to-day living. I mean, why buy paper plates and things like that when you can just use the things that you have? I don't know if this helps, but this is like a plastic piece of material that I once had as a drawer liner in my last home, and it has such a consistency to it. I said, oh, I think I'm going to use the remainder pieces. I just cut a few pieces, and I have one in my kitchen, and I have one near my paints, because these things, they really help. Like, you know how you can't open the tops of the paints? So I just use it as an opener, and it really does help a lot. And you can see that this one has been used quite a bit because it has a lot of paint stains on it. So yeah, let's mix these a little bit and see if I can get, the quality that I want here. I always keep a rubbish barrel near my workspace, so that I can throw things away. And, of course, a package of wipes, because I always make a mess, so I keep the wipes nearby so I can not make a mess. Okay. So, here's my spoon. I'm going to stir this up a little bit. Now, you can start with whichever product that you want, but I think it makes sense to me to start with the with this acrylic paint, because I would rather add a little bit more glaze than to thin out my paint and waste it, because these things are expensive. Hello, what is it? Louise, say hi to the camera. Yeah. My camera is situated so that if I pick her up, I'll have to move everything. One of these days, I'll get her on camera. She's very talkative and opinionated. So let's get a good spoonful. And I'm just going to use one of my stir sticks. Now, if you watch my other videos, you know that I love mixing up products to see what I get. So I think that's kind of fun. And so I'm thinking that that's about maybe 25% glaze. And that will just make it just a teeny bit easier for me to work with. And it gives it a nice sheen. Okay, so let's do some stripes, and I'm using my yellow frog tape, which I always keep in the container because I'm a freak about my tape. Not so much the blue ones, which, I just finished this roll. The blue tape is good too, but this tape is a little more gentle on your surface, and it seems to be a little more adherent to the piece that you're decorating. In other words, it's less likely to pull off your surface. And this surface has a coating of acrylic finish, actually a couple of them, because, I didn't want to have anything happen to my finish. So I think I'm going to start right here, and although this is a thick stripe, that's all right. If I had a pair of scissors handy, which I actually do, I'll grab my scissors. I like to cut the tapes evenly. Are you sure you don't have to, but So I'm going to make a wide stripe, and I'm going to stand right in front of it so that I can tell if it's even or not. Now you might want to add a little piece of tape so that you can measure it each and every time. That's an excellent idea. I don't always do that. What I'm doing is burnishing the edges down with my fingers to make sure I'm not going to get any bleed through. Okay, and just kind of eyeballing it. I'm not going to go deep into that side just yet because I don't want to. I've been kind of playing with this finish on the molds, and I don't want to. I don't want to compromise that at all. But yeah, this looks to be even. Now I have the glaze mixed with the metallic paint, the blush metallic paint, and I want it to be faded on the ends, so I have a little bit of a wet handy wipe here, and I'm going to start in the middle because this has a pretty good coverage. I'll start in the middle, and I'm going to gently brush out toward the ends because I don't want a very, very opaque coverage out on the edges. And I'm going to show you what I'm going to do here. I'm just gently brushing forward so that I kind of have a, a blend toward the end. And then I'm just going to start at the end, and I'm going to come in toward the center. And I'm just going to make sure that it is, in fact, a faded look. Yep. So there's a lot of freedom here. And I'm looking for faded. I'm not looking for perfection. I'm just going to go right up against that edge. Take a small dip into here. I have the wet cloth. I'm going to start on the end, and I'm going to sweep toward the center. Okay, I'm gonna cut this right near my mold because I don't want to press down on my mold. Not hard anyway. So here, let me adhere this down. Let's make sure that it's down there. And I'm just going to add just a little bit more of my faded stripes near my mold. Okay, so maybe I'll even kind of dab that off a little bit. I'm just blotting it on a piece of my foil And I'm going to start in the middle. And I'm going to work it out toward the end. Yeah. Yep. Starting at the end and coming in toward the middle. I'm just going to take some of that down. Now you can see that as I go out toward the edge, it actually has a little puddle of the glaze that I've already done, excuse me, on the outside. So I'm just going to kind of fill that in a little bit. Okay. So let me pick this up so that you can see it. Hopefully you'll like it. Yep, there's my faded stripes. And each side is different because I love that. And now I'm actually going to work on the front because the front has some of the decoupage as well. So I'm going to do that to match the top.